This is McFly Angler.
And it starts now.
To start, you will want a long shank curved hook like these 200Rs from Resin Fly. In this case, I'm using a size 10. Place the hook securely in your vise. For thread, I like this Vivus 10-aught in brown because it's strong, yet fine and flat. Start your thread right behind the hook eye and snip off the waist. Now we need a turkey biot quill in yellow. There are two sizes of biots here, a long one on this side, and here there's the shorter ones. Let's rip off two shorter ones. Snip off the butt ends to make it easier to work with. Now these naturally have a curve to them, as you can see here. You will want the curve splaying outward from the shank. Tie these in so just the tips are extending out, maybe about a hook gap width off the front of the hook. Make sure they stay right on the side like so, and then tie them in tight. But don't tie too far up, as the hook eye will make them bend out too far. About there is good. Now do the same thing with the other biot, so it is splaying out the other direction. Make a few tight wraps to make sure they don't rotate or pull out, and then cut off the butt ends. Now clean up the biot butts with a couple smooth wraps and then whip finish behind the biots. You should be left with something like this. Now we need a gold bead, and today I'm using these tungsten beads from Resin Fly. Honestly, the best priced anywhere for high quality tungsten beads. The size 3.25 seems to work best with this hook size. Take a bead and put it in the palm of your hand, and then bring the hook point to it for easy application to your hook. Now start your thread once again behind the bead and snip off the waist. Then make multiple wraps behind the bead to stabilize it, and then bring your thread down deep into the bend of the hook. Now we need some dubbing, and I really like this natural colored hare's ear dubbing. Pull off a small amount, less than that. Okay, that's about the right amount. You really don't need a lot here. Dub this onto your thread in a thin noodle like so, and then push the dubbing up close to the shank of your hook. Then wind on the dubbing noodle to create a little dubbing ball like so, and end with your thread right behind the dubbing ball. Strip off and prepare two more of the shorter biots, and same as before, make sure that they are splayed outward when tying in. You want the tail biots to extend out a little further than the front biots. Tie these in also on the side of the shank and tight up against the dubbing ball. That dubbing ball will help to splay them out even more. When tying in the other side, try to make sure the tips align as close as you can. When you're happy with the positioning, start tying up the shank with touching wraps until you reach about 2/3 the way up the hook shank. Then cut or break off the biot stems, and sometimes breaking them off works, but not always. Clean up the waist ends with some thread wraps, and then build a little taper on the hook shank by bringing your thread down to about the 2/3 mark on the shank, and then back up. And with your thread right behind the bead. Now we need two sizes of lead wire. Start with about a 3-inch or so piece of .010 size that I have here. This step is tricky, so take your time and don't worry if you can't get it on your first try. Tie the wire in on the side of the hook and down deep into the bend, but leave just a little space before the biot tail. Make two tight wraps with the thread and then break off the lead wire. Now do the same thing on the other side, trying to make each side as even as possible. Okay, let's grab a strand of the .015 sized wire. Try to tie the wire in so it's directly on the side of the other wire. Now this is the most difficult step in the fly. It's very hard to get it to lay perfectly. Just do your best, and you will get it after a few tries. Stop a little short of the previous wire and break it off in the same way. Now do the same thing on the other side. This does two things. Obviously it adds weight to the fly, but it also widens up the abdomen, which better mimics a stonefly. Now clean up that area with a few wraps up and down the hook shank. It helps to uncord your thread by spinning it counterclockwise and then wrapping down. This will give smoother wraps, which will help with the forming of the abdomen on this fly. End with your thread right in front of the biot tail. Okay, now we need one of those longer biot pieces. Use the tip of your scissors to separate it from the feather and then rip it off the quill. As you can see, these biots have a ridge on one side. You can see it on top. And then the bottom section is somewhat translucent. Keep this in mind for the next step. Cut off the fine tip just a few centimeters down. With the ridge on top, tie in just the tip like so. And then bring your thread up the hook shank and out of the way. Biots can be fragile, so for added durability, I brush some super glue on the abdomen. Take some hackle pliers like these and grab just the tip of the butt section of the biot. Then start making touching wraps up the hook shank with it. As you can see, those ridges stick out when tied this way, and it makes for a really nice looking segmented abdomen. Anyway, tie it off when you run out of the biot and cut off the waist. Now, this biot wasn't long enough for this size hook, so I'm adding another. If you need to also, cut off a little further up the biot and then tie it in and continue making wraps until you're happy with the length of the abdomen. Tie it off and cut off the waist. Now these stoneflies are mottled, yellow with some brown spots. So I take a brown Sharpie and mark up the body and the biot tail and the front horns with the Sharpie. For the wing case, I really like turkey tail feathers. Pull off a fair amount like this. Now I don't know the exact number of strands, but make it about this wide, and then rip those off from the feather. Cut off the strip section at the butt of the feather like so, and then tie it in directly on top of the fly, ensuring that it is even on both sides and none of the strands are crossing. You want to tie this down to about the halfway point on the fly. These stoneflies have large thoraxes. Then clean up the thorax with some wraps and end with your thread right in front of the last thorax wrap. Take some more of the rabbit dubbing and dub a fat, loose noodle onto your thread. Then build up a thick thorax. The guard hairs will stick out everywhere, which is good. This is what you want. If you need to add more, then do so. Just build this up fairly large and end with your thread right behind the bead. Now we need some hen saddle feathers. This is a small little saddle that will work great for this. Pull off one of the smaller feathers down towards the base of the saddle, and then clean it up by pulling off the fuzzies at the base of the feather, and then use the tip of your scissors to clip off the tip of the feather like this, so you are left with a V. Lay that feather on top of the thorax, place your thumb over it to make sure it stays put, and then make a couple tight wraps to hold it into place. You might need to adjust the feather stem also if it moves out of the way. When you're happy with the positioning, then pull the thorax casing up over the feather. Make sure it's even on top and no fibers are crossing each other, and then tie it down with a couple tight wraps. If the saddle feather is too long, you could at this point pull the stem to shorten it, but I was happy with the length here. Pull the end section of the turkey feathers up and make a couple wraps in front of it, and then pull up the saddle stem and wrap in front of it as well. Then snip off the waist. When cutting off the wing case fiber, it helps to use a fine tip scissor like this to get in tight, and trim off any errant fibers. Make a few wraps over the snipped ends to clean them up, and then whip finish your fly right behind the bead. I really like to use UV resin to build up the thorax casing here. Let's start with this Solares Ultra Thin. It's very viscous and will soak into the thorax and whip finish when painted on. That was literally sped up from an 8-second clip there. Anyway, cure the resin with your light. Now grab the medium thick resin from Solares and add a drop on top of the wing case. And then use a bodkin to spread it around, making it even on both sides. Once you're happy with the shape, then cure it with your UV light. I then add one last brush of the ultra thin to really shine up the abdomen. And there we have it, the fly is now finished. This is a fairly realistic stonefly pattern that really works well where fish are targeting golden stoneflies. It can be tied in a number of different sizes also. Let me know in the comments section what you think of this fly and if you have fished it before. It is an awesome pattern that has been around for a while, and I have fished it many times in Colorado with great success. As you all know, I have gotten you all discounts from both www.risenfly.com and www.dooliesflyfishing.com. Doolies offers great prices on all of the name brand fly tying materials, And Resin Fly manufactures their own hooks, rods, reels, and other gear for fly fishing. Their products are top quality, and best of all, they're priced very reasonably. Not only are the prices at these two shops great, but like I said, they are offering all of my subscribers a discount. So use McFly at checkout when ordering from either of these shops, and you will get an additional 15% off of their already great prices. I want to also thank all of my Patreons who support me. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support this channel and also get some great perks like early access to my videos, participate in live streams, and more. So go to www.patreon.com/McFly Angler to sign up today. I also thank all of you who share all my videos with your friends and your continued support by hitting the like buttons and subscribing. Thank you for making these videos possible. I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.